Does it ever feel like the toys are, well, taking over? Like you walk into a room and it's just a colorful explosion, and you're not quite sure where the floor went, let alone where to even start. If you're nodding along, even just a little bit, please know you are so not alone in this. It's one of those universal parenting experiences, isn't it? That feeling of being surrounded, sometimes a little overwhelmed by the sheer volume of stuff. And it's not just about the physical clutter, though that's certainly a big part of it. It's about the time it takes to manage it. The gentle, or sometimes not so gentle, negotiations with our little ones about putting things away. And maybe even a little bit of guilt we carry. Are they playing enough? Do they have the right things? Are we teaching them to value what they have? It's a lot to unpack, truly. And that's exactly what we're going to do together in this video. We're not looking for rigid, military-style organization systems that feel impossible to maintain with the beautiful, creative chaos that children bring. Instead, we're going to explore some really practical, and I hope, deeply compassionate ways to understand this whole toy situation, to navigate it with a bit more ease, and maybe even find some unexpected joy and connection in the process. So let's start by perhaps looking at these toys and our feelings about them from a slightly different angle. I'll wonder, have you ever paused to think about what these toys truly represent? Not just to our children, but to us as well. Sometimes just shifting our perspective a little can open up a whole new way of approaching things. You see, before we even get to the strategies of sorting and storing, it can be so incredibly helpful to understand the why behind the mountain of toys. These aren't just inanimate objects creating clutter. For our children, they are tools. They're the building blocks of their imagination, the props in their elaborate stories, the companions in their quiet moments. A simple stuffed animal can be a confidant, a source of immense comfort during a thunderstorm or a scary dream. A pile of colorful blocks isn't just a pile of blocks. It's a castle, a spaceship, a towering skyscraper waiting to be built, and then, often just as joyfully, knocked down. Through toys, our children learn about the world. They problem solve, they develop fine motor skills, they practice social interactions. They are, in many ways, the work of childhood. And for us as parents, well, toys can represent so much too, can't they? Sometimes they're an expression of our love. We see something that we know will light up their face, and that joy is infectious. Sometimes they're a way we try to give our children experiences or opportunities we didn't have. Maybe we're trying to foster a particular interest, or simply provide them with the best tools for learning and development. And let's be honest, sometimes we buy a toy hoping for 5 minutes of peace, and there's no shame in that. But acknowledging these underlying reasons, both our children's and our own, allows us to approach the toy management challenge with a lot more empathy and a lot less frustration. It's not just about their stuff. It's often deeply intertwined with their growth, their happiness, and our own hopes and intentions as parents. So, a really practical first step, flowing from this understanding, is to simply observe. Before you even think about decluttering, take some time to quietly watch your child play. Which toys genuinely capture their attention and hold it? Which ones do they return to day after day? And which ones sit gathering dust in the corner, largely ignored? You might be surprised. Sometimes the flashiest, most expensive toy is the one that gets overlooked, while a collection of smooth stones or an old cardboard box becomes the source of endless fascination. And as you observe, perhaps also take a moment to reflect on your own toy buying habits, or the toys that come into your home as gifts. Is there a pattern? Are there emotional triggers involved? Understanding this for ourselves can be quite enlightening. And then, when the time feels right, you can even talk to your children in an age-appropriate way, of course. Ask them about their favorite toys, what they love about them, what stories they create with them. You might hear things like, "This teddy helps me feel brave when it's dark," or "I love building huge towers with these blocks because it makes me feel strong." These little conversations can be so revealing and help us see the value, the emotional value, that certain items hold. I remember a friend telling me about a small, rather worn-out-looking plastic dinosaur her son had. She'd almost put it in the donate pile countless times, but one day he was having a really tough afternoon, feeling overwhelmed after a busy day at preschool, and he just clutched that little dinosaur, and it seemed to visibly calm him. It was his anchor, and it was a powerful reminder that sometimes the things that look like clutter to us are deeply significant to our little ones. Once we have a little more of this empathetic understanding, we can then start to think about the flow of toys into and out of our homes. This brings me to a concept many of us have heard of, often called the one in, one out rule. Now, I want to approach this with a lot of gentleness, because enforced rigidly, it can feel quite punitive to a child. But the spirit behind it, the idea of mindful consumption and making space, is incredibly valuable. Perhaps we can reframe it as the one in, some out philosophy, or even just the let's make thoughtful space approach. The core idea is that when new toys arrive, especially around those big occasions like birthdays or holidays when there can be a real influx, we take a moment to consider what we already have. It's not about deprivation, it's about teaching our children, and perhaps reminding ourselves, to appreciate what we have, to not be constantly chasing the next new thing, and to understand that our space, like our attention, is finite. So, how do we put this into practice without tears and tantrums? Well, the key, as with so many things in parenting, is to involve our children in a way that feels empowering rather than restrictive. When those new treasures arrive, you could say something like, "Wow, look at these wonderful new toys. That's so exciting." To make sure we have space for them so we can really enjoy them, and to make sure all our toys have a good home where they won't get lost or broken. Let's see if there are any toys here that you feel you've outgrown, or perhaps that you don't play with as much as you used to. Maybe another little boy or girl who doesn't have as many toys would really love to play with them. The language we use here is so important. Framing it as making room, or sharing joy, or passing on a toy to bring happiness to someone else can make a world of difference compared to, "We need to get rid of some of your old stuff." You can make it a collaborative process. Sit down with them, go through a toy box together. Ask questions like, "Do you remember playing with this? What kind of adventures did you have?" This honors the memories associated with the toy, even if it's time for it to move on. Allow them to have a say. There might be some toys they're just not ready to part with, and that's okay. This isn't about a power struggle, but often, when given the chance and the right framing, children can be surprisingly generous and understanding. You can have a designated donation box, maybe one they even help decorate, and they can place the toys they're ready to pass on in there. Knowing that their once-loved toy is going to a new home, perhaps to a child in need, or to a younger cousin they adore, can be a really positive experience. I remember when my nephew was about 5, he had this big collection of superhero figures. He got a new, even bigger set for his birthday. His mom gently suggested that maybe some of his older figures could go to the local children's hospital. At first, he was hesitant, clutching them all. But then she talked about how some children in the hospital might be feeling a bit lonely or scared, and how a superhero could make them feel brave. He thought about it for a long time, then carefully selected 3 of his figures. He even wrote a little note with his mom's help, saying, "To a brave kid from your friend." The pride on his face when they dropped off that bag was immense. It wasn't about what he was losing, it was about what he was giving. And that's a powerful lesson. Now, hand in hand with managing the flow of toys is the idea of creating spaces where play can happen joyfully and where tidying up doesn't feel like an insurmountable chore. This is where the concept of yes spaces and the magic of toy rotation comes in. Instead of our homes feeling like a constant battleground where we're always saying, "No, don't touch that," or "Be careful, that's going to break," or "Ugh, not more mess." What if we could design areas that invite play, that are, within reason, child-proofed and child-friendly? A yes space is essentially an area where your child has a lot more freedom to explore and play without constant redirection or worry from you. This might be their bedroom, a corner of the living room, or a dedicated playroom if you have the space. The key is that the toys available in this space are appropriate, safe, and crucially, manageable in number. This is where toy rotation becomes such a game changer. If you're feeling that toy overwhelm, I can almost guarantee that a good portion of the toys aren't even being played with regularly. They're just part of the landscape. Toy rotation is wonderfully simple. You gather up a selection of toys, perhaps a third or even half of the total collection, and you store them away, out of sight, in a closet, the attic, under a bed, wherever you have some spare storage. Then, after a few weeks, or maybe a month or two, you bring out that stored collection and pack away the ones that have been out. It's like magic. Suddenly, those old toys feel brand new again. You'll see your child rediscover items they'd completely forgotten about, and their engagement and creativity will often surge. My friend Sarah does this with her 3 kids, and she swears by it. She has these big plastic tubs, and every 6 weeks or so, they have a toy swap day. The kids actually get excited about it, wondering what new old treasures will emerge from the tubs. She says it's not only cut down massively on the daily clutter, but it's also made her children more appreciative and engaged with the toys they do have out at any given time. It prevents that toy fatigue, where there are so many options they don't know what to choose. So they end up flitting from one thing to another or just saying, "I'm bored." Within these yes spaces, think about how toys are stored, making it easy for children to see and access their toys, and just as importantly, to put them away, is crucial. Clear bins are great, or open shelving with baskets. You can use picture labels for younger children who can't read yet, so they know exactly where the blocks go, where the dolls live, or where the art supplies belong. For example, instead of one giant toy box where everything gets jumbled into a chaotic mess, and the toy at the bottom never sees the light of day, try smaller, themed containers. A basket for dress-up clothes, a bin for cars and trucks, a shelf for puzzles and games. This not only helps with organization, but also supports their developing ability to categorize and sort. You might even consider creating special little zones or kits. A quiet time box with a few calming activities like a soft book, a simple puzzle, or some drawing materials can be a lifesaver during those moments when you just need a little peace. Or an art cart with paper, crayons, and washable markers that can be wheeled to the table and then easily stored away. The aim is to make the environment work for you and your child, reducing frustration and increasing the opportunities for joyful, independent play. Imagine the difference between a child walking into a room filled with neatly organized, accessible bins, each inviting them to a specific kind of play, versus a room where toys are piled high in every corner. The first invites calm exploration. The second can feel instantly overwhelming, even for an adult. And that brings us to what can often feel like the most challenging part of all, the actual tidying up. For so many of us, it becomes a point of contention, a daily battle of wills. But what if we could shift our perspective on this too? What if tidying up wasn't a punishment for having fun, but rather a natural and even collaborative part of the cycle of play? a life skill that we are gently teaching, just like brushing teeth or getting dressed. This shift in mindset, from seeing cleanup as a chore to be imposed, to viewing it as a shared responsibility and a skill-building opportunity, can make all the difference. The first thing to remember is to start small and start early. Even a toddler who is just learning to walk can be encouraged to help put 1 or 2 soft toys into a basket. It's not about achieving a perfectly tidy room at that age. It's about introducing the concept that we take care of our things and our space. As they grow, their capacity to help will grow too. The key is to make it manageable and not overwhelming. Asking a 4-year-old to clean up an entire room that looks like a toy store exploded can feel impossible to them. But asking them to find all the blue Lego pieces and put them in this container, or let's see if we can get all the dolls tucked into their beds, breaks the task down into achievable steps. And who said tidying up can't be fun, or at least a little less tedious? We can incorporate playfulness into it. Sing a silly cleanup song. There are tons of them, or you can make up your own. Turn it into a game. I bet I can pick up more cars than you. Or let's race to see who can fill their basket first. Setting a timer for a quick 5 or 10-minute tidy-up burst can also work wonders, especially for kids who get easily distracted. Knowing it's only for a short period can make it feel much less daunting. And perhaps one of the most powerful things we can do is to model the behavior ourselves. If our children see us tidying up our own things, putting books back on shelves, or clearing the table after a meal with a generally positive, or at least neutral attitude, they're much more likely to see it as a normal part of life. And when it comes to their toys, joining in makes a huge difference. Instead of standing over them issuing instructions, get down on the floor and help. You gather the blocks, and I'll get the train tracks. It becomes a team effort, a moment of connection, rather than a chore they have to do alone while you do something else. Clear communication about expectations before the big play session can also prevent a lot of frustration later. Something simple like, it's wonderful that you want to get out the big box of dress-up clothes. Let's have so much fun. And remember, when we're all finished playing dress-up, we'll work together to put all the clothes back in their box so they stay nice and we can find them next time. This sets the stage. And when it is time to tidy, focus on effort and teamwork rather than demanding perfection. If they've genuinely tried, even if a few things are still out of place, acknowledge their effort. Wow, you worked so hard to put those puzzles away. Thank you so much for your help. Our playroom looks so much better now. This positive reinforcement is so much more effective in the long run than criticism or frustration. I used to get so stressed about cleanup time with my own kids when they were little. It felt like a constant power struggle. Then I shifted my approach. I started putting on some upbeat music. I'd make it a mission, and I'd always help. It didn't magically make them love cleaning up, but it took so much of the tension out of it. Sometimes we'd even end up giggling as we sorted through a pile of mismatched socks for the dollies, or tried to fit all the oddly shaped plastic animals back into their designated bin. It became less of a battle and more of a shared closing ritual to our playtime. So, as we've walked through these ideas, understanding the why behind the toys, embracing a gentle one in, some out philosophy, creating those yes spaces with toy rotation, and making tidying a more collaborative, skill-building ritual. I hope you're feeling a little more equipped and perhaps a little less overwhelmed. This whole journey of parenting, with all its beautiful messes and its profound joys, is exactly that, a journey. And managing the physical things like toys is just one small part of it. But it can feel so big sometimes, can't it? What we're really talking about here, underneath all the practical tips, is building understanding with our children, fostering connection even in the midst of what can feel like chaos, and navigating these everyday challenges with as much compassion for them and for ourselves as we can muster. There's no perfect system, no one-size-fits-all solution, because every family, every child, every home is wonderfully unique. The real magic lies in finding what works for your family, what brings a little more peace, a little more ease, and a lot more joy into your shared spaces and your shared time. Please remember, you are doing an incredible job navigating so much every single day. The fact that you're here, thinking about how to make things a little better for your family, speaks volumes about your love and dedication. Trust your instincts, be patient with the process, and know that every small step you take towards creating a more harmonious home environment is a step towards deeper connection and understanding. You have an amazing capacity to bring positive change and warmth into your family life, even when it comes to something as seemingly mundane as toy management. If this conversation resonated with you, if it sparked an idea or offered a little bit of comfort, we'd be so grateful if you'd give this video a like. And if you know another parent who might be wading through their own toy mountain right now, perhaps you could share it with them. We're building a community here at Family Connection Hub, a place for support, shared learning, and gentle encouragement on this wild and wonderful parenting adventure. If you'd like to join us for more conversations like this, please do consider subscribing to the channel. We'd love to have you as part of our growing family. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Take good care.